Greetings, car fanatics. This is my 2008 Porsche Cayenne Turbo with 121,000 miles. And if you've been following the channel, you know this Cayenne has had a lot of issues. And just like clockwork, every 5 to 10,000 miles, a new issue pops up. And this time we have a rear axle that came loose. Yes, I repeat, a rear axle came loose. That is a pretty serious problem, but fortunately, I think I caught it soon enough. Let's go ahead and check it out. As I was driving, I heard a clunking noise from the rear of the vehicle, and it varied based on the speed I was driving. So I took a wheel off over here, and then let's take a look at what we found. Alright, car fanatics, let's check out the rear driver's side axle. You can see here that we're missing two bolts that hold the axle to the rear differential, and you have these retaining clips here, and I think two of them have come off. You can see here that all the bolts have worked themselves loose. Fortunately, I caught this before there's a ton of damage, but let's go ahead and tighten these screws up, and whenever I do get the new bolts in, we'll go ahead and replace these bolts that are missing. To fix the issue, I've ordered some new hardware. I have these axle bolts that are one-time use, and there are these clips. I ordered 3 of them to replace everything on that one side. Now, I'm not going to try to repack grease into the axle because that's going to be a lot of labor, and if I'm going to do all of that, I might as well replace the axle anyways. So let's go ahead and get the new hardware on. We can remove the wheel bolts by getting underneath the car. We don't have to take anything off. The bolts on the lower half of the axle are easy to access. For the bolts on the top of the axle, you want to have the car lifted up with the wheels off the ground so you can rotate the wheels and axle to be able to get access to the remaining bolts. Before we install our new hardware, let's clean it off with brake cleaner and a pipe cleaner. Alright, we have the new hardware installed. We have it snugged down, but we haven't torqued it yet. We're going to be torquing it to 67 foot-pounds, and then once you get there, you need to turn each of the bolts an additional 90 degrees because these bolts are designed to be stretched. So that's why it's really important to clean out those holes. That way you can get the appropriate torque spec. So let's go ahead and torque these in a crisscross pattern. Okay, so unfortunately it was hard for me to capture the process of torquing each bolt down. Now the easiest way I found to access these bolts without taking off a bunch of stuff is marking each of these bolts and then getting them in this lower position directly pointing down towards the ground. That way you can get an extension and a socket on this as well as a ratchet, and then if your car is off the ground, you can just rotate this axle to position the bolts in the right spot so you can be able to reach them. And as you can see, I cleaned up all of the oil so it looks nice. This should be good to go. I will be periodically double checking to make sure that these bolts don't back out. And I definitely recommend other Cayenne owners check out your axle bolts because you never know when they can work their way loose. Before we wrap things up, let's check out the other corners of the vehicle to make sure the axle bolts are good to go. Okay, so this is the rear passenger side axle, and I can confirm that the bolts were not either torqued to spec properly or loosened over time. So I retorqued this side over here, and you can see we have a little bit of seepage, most likely either the seal's going bad or because these bolts were not torqued to spec. And looking at the front driver's side axle, you can see that there is seepage coming from the axle where it meets the differential, and if I were to guess, I would bet that these bolts either have loosened or were not properly torqued to spec whenever they were last worked on. Alright, and let's check out the front passenger side, and you can see front passenger side is actually pretty clean. I'm surprised. Alright, car fanatics, so that's the latest issue I had with my Cayenne. Fingers crossed I don't run into any more issues anytime soon. If you own a Cayenne, I would definitely recommend adding the axle bolts to your annual inspection list just to make sure they're not backing out, because if you lose all those bolts and your axle comes off, that could be really bad. Well, thanks for watching, car fanatics. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Leave your comments or questions below, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you're notified each time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.